was going to catch a train in the subway when I hear a strange song coming from down there. So I see people, so I hear music.
Well, my name is Bernard Francis, and I am known mainly in Leicester as the man that owned the travel agent, which was Uncle Sam's Travel. I started out as Bernard's Travel and Uncle Sam's Travel. But before that, I run a garage, several garages in motor mechanic, and I used to move people from house to house, or from room to room, I should say, in the earlies. But if I can start from Antigua, I was born in St. John's, grew up in St. Johnston's Village, went to boys' school, had a reasonable schooling, but like the typical Antiguans, young men at that time, we had to go and look after the goats, sheep, whatever, cattle, cows, and carry them out in the morning. From 5 o'clock in the morning we got up, go to the bushes, look after the animals, then back home, fill up the drum with water, go and look wood, light the fire, sweep up the yard, then you're off to school. Before 9 o'clock you got to make sure you run. My distance was about 10 miles to get to school.
Okay, wow.
And that's if you take the shortcut. You used to have to go through burying ground, which is, they call it Lady Nugent. And as a kid, you're scared. Sometimes you're running through there and you fall down in a grave, and you get up and brush out and start looking back, wondering if anybody following you or whatever. But that was, that was fun in itself, because if there's a few of us coming back from school, we used to really play around in the burying ground and try and go down in the hole, and when somebody's passing, you jump up and they would run like hell, scare them to death. But yes, that was my early days, and I had a reasonable childhood. I was brought up with an adopted mother, who was my mother's godmother. When my mom had me, she wasn't well, and they thought she would die because she was sort of paralyzed from the waist down, because my head, as you can tell, I got a very big head. So her godmother, who was living in town, took me and looked after me. And then when they realized that she was still surviving, she took her and looked after her until she was able to go back to Liberta, where her mother was living. Them days there wasn't cars, so it's donkey. They had to carry her on. And with my dad, apparently he took her home on a donkey, and they look after her until she was come back 100% fit. So I grew up. Her godmother decided I belonged to her because she didn't have any kids. So she adopted me, and them days it wasn't official adoption. She took me basically, and I grew up with her. And then when I was about 12, she got a job in St. Croix to cook, so she took me with her, and I went to school in St. Croix for 6 months, which is the duration of the contract. And then there was some people her family actually wanted to adopt me, but she didn't want to lose me to them. So she decided, I'm gonna stay in Antigua the following year. And that's what happened until 1960, when she decided, my dad came to England, and she says by that time I was just finished, 15. going into 16, and she says I can come to England and finish my schooling. But then it was a shock when I came to England. I went to sign up for school, and when they got to the part with the age, they said, oh no, we finished school at 15.
Okay.
So I couldn't carry on. So obviously I was sad. My dad was angry because he didn't realize that that was the school leaving age. And I asked him to send me back home, but he couldn't afford to send me back home. So, cause it was just me and him actually living in Leicester at that time. My mom and my brothers and sisters were still in Antigua. So obviously, he looked for like a day release. Well, I went to night school first, but then they were teaching me rat and bat and cat and, you know, and I couldn't understand that because these people were white people, and white people were supposed to write. You know, so I come home and explain to him, and he says, oh, well, I just have to do that and see what happened. Went there for about maybe 2 months, and then he got me into college. They released doing an apprenticeship, because I used to learn mechanic as a kid in Antigua when school holidays. So I did that for 5 years, done my apprenticeship. And as soon as I got to the age of 21, I decided I wanted to go back home. But in the meantime, my mom and my siblings came over.
Okay.
So we were a family again, you know, here. But then I went back home because I didn't really grow up with my brothers and sisters as such. So my friends was the boys who I grew up with in St. Johnson's.
So they were kind of like your brothers?
They were like my brothers, and I went back home and meet up with a couple of them, but most of them had left, some to England, some to the States, and that's how I ended up. I spent 2 months, and then I realized, well, I had to come back, because the ones that I left there were doing well. They were better off than me. And I couldn't understand that, because I'm supposed to be in England, which was the best place he could come according to the history anyway. You know, we supposed to be doing well, but there was my friends that doing better than me. So I came back and decided, well, I'm going to work hard to better myself so I can go back again. And I'm still here, what, 60 years after? You know. But saying that, I did go back and built a home there. Frequently I go once, twice a year. Now I'm retired, I can go you know, more regular and stay a longer time. But I did sort of mechanic for about 30 years. And then the following to your, according to your question, I think you're asking me about the jobs that I did. I actually went to the States in 81 and realized that black people achieve better things in America, status, than in England. So after I looked around, I decided, well, I wasn't going to let my kids grow up doing, going through the system here by working for people and people pushing them around and so on. So I decided to start this travel agent, because a friend of mine in London was doing travel agent, and he was always
SN Travel.
SN Travel.
Wow. My mum goes to church with the lady, the widow of
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, it must be. Yeah, I can't remember her name.
Yeah,
but
oh, gee,
My mum goes to church with
she's got on my phone, she's, you know. Yeah, man, she's, well, her husband, the ex, you know, he died now. We were friends from home, actually. He was an older guy than me, but he used to drive the bus that took my parents to town, because they live in the same area. And he's from Freetown. So I always used to visit him, as a family. I had a key for their house, actually.
Okay.
So I used to go down with my family, take them down and go, and we spend the weekend. So it was a case that he used to encourage me to go into the travel agent, because he was a mechanic as well before he went to the travel agent.
Okay.
And it happened so that when my stepmother died, he sold me a ticket to go down, but he says to me, "Oh, I can't stay in the hotel. It's one that you buy with the hotel, but there's no hotel booked for me. So I can stay with my people, obviously, but I use a flight going and coming." And he showed me a bit of the ropes, how you go about the travel business. And after I came back, I find out from him that people were paying like £600. At them days, £600 was like a lifetime. They used to call it an emergency flight. And for £150, you could have gone to Antigua and come back. But if you go into the travel agent and say you want an emergency flight, they just sell you the dearest ticket that they can, because you haven't got a choice. And that was what they class as an emergency flight. But there was no such thing as emergency flight. It's just a seat in a different class, basically. So he explained to me, and that's when I started to introduce some of my friends here who had that issue with emergency flights, and I used to book it for them. And so little by little I start doing the travel business. So when I went to America and seen how things were working with black people and they have businesses and so on, I decided, well, I'm going to set up a complex where that would be buying a property and renting out different rooms for different type of businesses. So we'll have all these black businesses in one area. And I did that, try going around getting colleagues to join with me. That was difficult. So I ended up going to the city council to try and get some funds to see, because somebody recommended that I'll do that. Am I going too fast for you?
No, you're going fine, honestly.
Somebody recommended that I can take that idea to the city council, and I did. And they said, well, we have to do a feasibility study. And with that, I had to apply to the council for this funds to do the feasibility study, but I had to advertise it. But nobody knew the project that I am into. So I had to go to an interview for an idea that I had, and other people went for the same interview, but they didn't know anything about the issue, but it's just the policies that you have to advertise and people apply. So anyway, I got the job to do the feasibility study, which lasted 3 years. And they set it up in the Business Advice Center, which is the local authority Business Advice Center. After that come to an end, that idea was looking around and seeing what is needed in terms of businesses who want to set up in business as black people in the community, basically. And it was bigger than I expected. There were more people, a lot of people selling out of the cars and out of the houses, doing different things. And we put the project together, but then it came to a halt because there was a few people, one guy in particular, African guy, who wanted to separate the Caribbean from Africans, and by saying that they want money for themselves to do businesses, and the Caribbean people would do, in other words, I'm not speaking for them. So with that, the council didn't support any of it.
Okay.
That's what actually happened then, because it would be divisive, if you like. So we then look at other ways of raising funds. So I actually joined up with, I opened a travel agent called Bernard's Travel, and it was doing pretty well. And this friend of mine who had a travel agent in Birmingham approached me, and I talked to my friend in London, Stoke Newington Travel, SN Travel, what it is now. And we come up with an idea that I'll join with these people in Birmingham, and we'll call Uncle Sam's Travel. And we had, at one stage, we had 5 offices around the country, which we used to do our own charters. I don't know if you would have heard, but I'm sure your mom would have heard about 199 flights to the Caribbean, and 99 pounds to Jamaica, return, and it was silly. And the big companies didn't like it. So
as I would expect.
So they run us out of business, basically. We didn't have money. I don't know if you heard of Laker, but Laker were doing the same thing in the 60s. And they run Laker out of business, but he was able to sue them in America, and he got rewarded. And we didn't have the funds and the know-how, basically, to sue the big, it was the British Airways at the time. So we had to just basically shut up shop. And, at one time, we used to pay them at the 15th of every month. And we were paying them like 3 million every 3 months in ticket money. Just one company, British Airways. We were paying them that kind of money because we were one of the biggest ticket sellers in the country, basically. We were selling more than British Airways itself to the Caribbean. We sent them a text, not the text, it was a fax to say that we were going to be, instead of the 15th, we're going to pay them on the 17th. And on the 16th, there was bailiff at our doors.
Wow.
Closed, so we couldn't open because they wanted the money there and then. And basically sent us bankrupt.
Wow.
But we were fortunate to a point that when I signed the agreement with Uncle Sam's Travel, I didn't actually register with Uncle Sam's Travel, and Bernard's Travel became UST Travel in Leicester. So my office wasn't closed. The other offices had closed then, and I was able to keep the office open and not lose, to as terms of closing down. So I was able to keep the Leicester office branch open, doing the shipping and the travel just the same. But the main franchise that was doing the charters and so on had to close because that was registered with Atoll. It was a different business, Atoll and IATA, which is the big organization side of it. My end was just like a sub branch, franchise to the main Uncle Sam's Travel.
Okay. I feel like once you had set up business, I assume that the community, especially particularly the Caribbean community, of course, were very supportive.
Unfortunately, no.
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 Okay.
My friends were, But there was a problem where, I don't know, with Caribbean people, we felt that we don't want our friends to get ahead better than us. I mean, it was even down to a case where I had because I was in the mechanic business, I had my own garage. I had a nice BMW in them days, running 7 Series, very nice car. And I had to stop driving it. And my kids used to drive it. And I drive an old car because I couldn't make it look like if I am doing well. Because people say that they were saying that they're not making me rich. So actually some of my friends used to come and book with me for their friends because their friends didn't want to come to the office.
Wow.
To make me look, but as I say, I'm still fortunate because of the prices. Some of them didn't have no choice. Actually, there is a company, I don't want to call their name now, but there's a company in Leicester who used to buy tickets from us and sell to our people.
Wow.
And when we went bankrupt, they went to these people, some of them, they went to them to complain, and the people them send them to us. And we said, well, who did the book? We can't find your name and so on. And because as I say, my office was still open in Leicester, they were coming to me from different areas. And I said, well, look, I can't find your name here. Where did you book? And then when they tell me the company of the book, I said, well, you go to them. And they said, well, no, they tell me to come here. I said, no, you haven't booked, do any business with us. But what happened, they would rather go to them, it's our flight. We're the main, and they were going to them, buy the tickets from them, which they were paying more than what they pay from us. Because obviously we weren't selling them cheaper, so they could sell it, undercut us. So the people prefer to go to them just because they don't want to come and do business with their own people. It's so sad. And it's still happening now. Yeah. I find that the younger generation are not that way so much, but our generation, that's how we operate.
That's really...
I was just discussing this just last week, actually, with a young man who is doing pretty well with the Windrush, the thing that they're giving it away, and the carnival, and we were trying to discuss why we're not getting further ahead, because we have nothing. We haven't got a foundation in Leicester. We've been here in the 50s, 40s, 50s, and yet we haven't got anything of substance apart from. We got a club, Highfield Rangers. We got this centre that we're actually filming in, but it's not ours. It's the local authority, basically, and we can't seems to command anything or put our stamp on anything because we're not together. Yeah. That's why my interpretation of it. Anyway.
I think you're probably right. You've been around this business for a long time, and it's like I said, that's not something that I'm hearing for the first time. Unfortunately, it's something that I've heard way too many times. In fact,
and it's sad because I've got youth, I've got grandkids, I've got great grands here in Leicester, and they don't have nothing to look back and say, well, this is what my dad's generation, my granddad generation do. There's not even a landmark, that we can look back and say, well, they were here.
Yeah. I understand.
There's nothing. And it's so sad because I would really love to get involved with someone or a group of people to say, well, let's do something that can be left for our youngsters to, have something to look up to and say, well, look, the Caribbean people were here at some stage, but we haven't got that.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
It does make me feel a way about it. But I was gonna say, I just wanted to take you back for a bit. Do you remember you came here? What did you try? You travelled by BOAC, or did you travel by?
I travelled by Escana, a ship.
Okay, all right.
And it was one of the quicker ones that took 13 days.
All right, cool. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It left Antigua in March. I think it was around about sometime in the March. I can't remember the date now out in my head, but it got here in April, the early part of April. I should have left in January, but unfortunately I had an accident when I went to see my mother to tell her goodbye.
Oh.
And I couldn't get to the ship on time. So I had to wait for the next one, which was in the March. And I got here, had a lovely time on the ship, believe it or not. It was an experience. I was sick for about 3 days. I didn't go to my room to sleep for about 3 days, but after that, I was okay, and it was like in a different world, dancing and, like club, young man just never been to a dance or whatever, and you were able to go to movies free every night.
Wow.
Go to a dance, all the elder boys, men and women, used to be dancing around, and it was fun. Somebody, you go for 3 meals a day. It was good. And when we got to Southampton in the morning, and they says everybody off, I cried. I was very tearful. I'd say I was foolish them days, because I didn't want to come off the ship. It was so nice, and it was so nice actually that when I wanted to go back to Antigua, I tried to book on the ship to go back, 6 years later, and I couldn't afford it because it was cheap on the plane, But yes, when I came off from Southampton and see everybody smoking, I thought to myself, I was saying to my friend, because there was a couple of young fellas came up with me that we were friends, and I said, look how everybody's smoking. And not unknown to me, it was the steam out their mouth and nose were coming out, and I thought it was everybody smoking. When they talk, you see the smoke coming out. That's the only thing that I knew when people smoking and they talk, the puff is coming out. And then our parents was like there, and they're looking through the crowd to see who is who, and everybody hugging each other. And then I didn't see my father, so they put us on a train, and then we get to Waterloo Station. Well, not, who didn't find the parents come to Southampton. Everybody just put on a train and take it to Waterloo Station, and then your parents, if you're lucky, would meet you there. My dad was there, so some people, they had to just ask the police station to try and find where they can go and stay the night, or find where they live, their addresses, But that was my experience coming into the country. Then we drove to Leicester. We went to some friends of his in London, and they had an old car. This friend of his had an old car, and we got on the M1. That time the M1 just was half built, and the car caught a fire.
Wow.
We were struggling along the M1 coming up near just past, I think it was Milton Keynes area, and this car passed us and pointing down at us. When we stopped, the car was blazing at the back. I tell you. You know, so anyway, we were able to put it out. It was like the exhaust. They had like it was like a strap, like this strap anyway, and the exhaust caught the fire because it was getting hot so long, you know, coming up there one. And we were able to put it out and then managed to get to Leicester. And coming into Leicester and I seen all these houses with smoke coming out the chimney. I says to my dad, so all the baker shops are in this area? And he says, it's one of them baker shops you're going to live in. I said, so what do you mean? He says, no, it's the houses, that's how they are. I said, no, they got bricks, because in Antigua, anything with brick is a baker shop, you know. So he said, no, one of them baker shops you're going to live in. And true enough, we was living in the baker shop because the firewood there, or the coal, whatever you can afford, and you used to stand around it and turn your back and warm your front and your back. One day my brother got caught on fire, just standing in front of the fire, and he wasn't taking no notice, and he caught on fire. The trousers caught on fire. But that was normal. That you know, if it wasn't that, you had a paraffin heater, and you cook on that. You do everything on that. Oh, I tell you, them days is something to think about.
Much different today, obviously. You see the bakeries, in quotations, but coming from Antigua and to here now, what were your first impressions of the society? Like, what was running through your mind?
Well, it was unbelievable. I mean, it wasn't nothing that you thought about. You know, you couldn't imagine, because we as kids think, well, England, it was like they're saying that the street was paved with gold, and it was literally that we thought of that, you know. But when I came here, it was depressing, very depressing. But you couldn't. There was no way of thinking. I mean, I was, as I say, teenager, and I couldn't think of what to expect other than what you heard, that you're coming to the motherland and you could have everything, anything you want. But it was far from that. You know, I mean, it was dirty as far as I'm concerned, because you're foggy, you can't see where you're going when the fog, well, it was like every day there was fog, because I came, as I say, it was just in the winter. And, you know, the people, the cops, it was different, totally different. I don't even want to explain to you, it's not embarrassing, because I don't drink tea up to this day, because my dad took me to one of his friend's house, who was a native of England, and when they gave me this cup of tea, they asked me if I want some tea, and I thought, well, yeah, tea is something that in Antigua you only get on Sundays if you're lucky. But when they gave me the tea and I seen the cup, and the rings in the cup, the dirty rings in the cup, I couldn't drink it. It took me all night to try and drink it. And then from that day, I decided don't drink tea, because that's the only thing they had to offer you. And when I go home now, I have Ovaltine now, I have whatever, and you know, it's not that I don't drink tea, but I don't want tea from your cup, you know. And that is, I got in trouble at work, because as an apprentice, I had to make the tea. The first thing they show you to do is to sweep the place, the garage, and make the tea. And I seen all these cups. There was about maybe 5 of us in the garage, and all the cups them had all the different. You could tell which day is which with the rings that you know. So I decided one day to scrub them all out. I walked with some steel wool from my house, and I scrubbed the cups them. And the foreman almost sacked me because I cleaned the cups.
You were
and
hygienic. They get vexed.
No, the taste not going to be the same.
Wow.
He can't tell which cup is his because he can tell from the rings which is his.
Wow.
You know, and that was common. You know.
Really?
That, you know, yeah.
Wow.
I mean, that was something you got to somebody's house. As I say, the indigenous people, them, and the majority of the cups, them were, you know, filthy.
Yes.
But, you know, if they shake it out,
Wow.
that's it. They shake it out. Them days they had tea leaves, you know, loose tea leaves.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever experienced that, but
No.
the tea leaves was loose. You take a spoon and you put it in, and then you can. They used to say if something float on the top, somebody's going to get married and all kind of things, like some old wife tales and you know. But all the cups usually dirty.
Wow.
I mean, you can, no matter, it's not the rich and poor thing. They just did not clean the cups.
That is really
Like the way how
disturbing.
we are taught to in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we would get beaten if you just bring back a cup that's used and you had any kind of stain in it. You know, so all of that it was a terrible experience, and I'm not speaking for just me. You know, all of us went through some bad experience. I mean, even the hygiene. You know, we couldn't get up and don't wash our face and scrub our teeth. You know, there was an English lady living in the house that I lived in with a girl child. And her washing her child, she used to spit on the end of her skirt and wipe her face with it. And you know, that's common.
Wow.
You see them on the street, they used to do that.
Wow.
Just spit on their hanky. If they have a hanky, spit on it, and then they wipe their face. You know, just wipe the mark. And, you know, all of them,
because of my face, you must have like
all of them smell the same. You could,
Whoa.
you know, if, I'll tell you, I was, as I say, I was in my teens. But the elder boys, them, if they've been with a woman, somebody, if they just hug you, they leave that smell on you.
Wow.
You know, so you take that home and somebody know you hug somebody. You know, it was, but as I say, it's an experience, and it's not something that you can, even though you don't want to go back into that because it sounds like you're exaggerating. You know, I mean, it's terrible. It was a shock to us, but at the same time, we used to gather as Caribbean people into each other's house every weekend. Every weekend you can say, well, you're going to go to somebody. If you're walking by, and you hear any music playing, you just go in. You know, it was just open, and they were glad to see you.
Okay.
If you see somebody on the road, oh, when you come, and you're glad to meet them and who they are, you know, and it was nice that way. But as I say, Leicester was different to London totally because of the country life, and you don't see many people other than people that you know. Because you got to know them quickly. You know, even if from Grenada, Guyana, Jamaica, St. Lucia, once they come in the community, you get to know them. So we all was like familiar with each other. In London now, you have to drive to East End, to North London. Most of the Caribbean people was in North London. And if you go there, you can drive get the bus to someone's house and you knew where to go. But in Leicester, it was like you just walk on the road and you see somebody you know.
I was gonna, just a quick question. Do you remember what you brought with you? What was with you when you came? Do you remember what was with you when you actually arrived?
Well, the typical thing that was with you, it was a hat. You had a new hat to come to England, one of them kind of biscuit-looking hats. And you had your, what we call a briefcase, well, what you call a suitcase. Then we used to call it a grip.
Yeah.
I think I still got it in my attic actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you had a grip and a few pieces of clothes, but nothing to talk about because you're coming to England.
Yeah.
And you know there was nothing that you're going to get everything here.
Yeah.
But you walk with your hat. It was like you had a suit that you came in mainly, and your one pair of shoes and a couple of pieces of clothes, but nothing much, you know.
Yeah. Having been, now you're in Britain, and either whether it be 1 month, 6 months, couple of years, what are some of the sounds, the tastes, the kind of things that you missed? Or it might not be a taste, it might have just been doing something in Antigua that you just missed doing, that you knew you couldn't do here.
Well, you mean now or when I came?
No, now when you came.
When I came?
Yeah.
Well, seeing the sun was nice, I tell you. I mean, I remember one day I think maybe I was different to most people because I couldn't go to school. I was home for a few days or maybe a couple of weeks. And I was stand at the window and just look at outside, just like a crazy. In Antigua, I don't know you would know this, but we have a place they call Crazy House in Antigua. And it's a hospital with
You mean
Clear View.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, that's Clear View is just because it's in Clear Hall.
That's an official
That's
name.
unofficial, you know. Crazy House. You talk about Crazy House, and the people them used to go and see like these bars. That's the only place that had bars.
Yeah.
That and the jail. And you stand up, you stood up. I was, standing up and just holding that and just looking out the window like one of them crazy people. And one day I said to my dad, he came from work 2 o'clock, I'll never forget this. And I says to him, is that how it rains every day in England? And he says, well, yeah, well, it don't rain every day, but this time of the year it rains. Because every day I wake up, outside would be wet. Even if it's not raining then, what they used to call pissing down. If it's not coming down like that, it would be wet outside because of the fog and the smoke and because of the chimney and so on. So it was different. I can't say what I missed. I know I could not get the food because it's difficult to miss something when you can't see it. But we could only get certain potatoes. You can get what we call Irish potatoes. You couldn't get sweet potatoes. You couldn't get no food. I mean, when I came here, you couldn't even get rice.
Wow.
Cornmeal. You could get white flour. I remember you could get flour. But there was a Jew shop where actually my father used to go to on his bike, and he would buy things that is familiar to him from the Jew shop and take to any of his friends. Bring home some things and take to his friends. But all we had to live on basically was what the English people live on. I mean, it was potato and potato, but you didn't. When you get like this Jew shop, and you can get rice, you go and buy some rice, and you cook once a week. Every Sunday, a lot of people cook. this big pot of rice, and you put it on the windowsill. And you go to work, and then when you come back Monday, you take out some, heat it up, and you put it back on the windowsill. That's the fridge. Outside is the windowsill, you know. And you set your jello. Yeah. You could get jello, and you set that, and you put it on the windowsill, and it freezes, you know. And that's how we lived until, as I say, little by little. And now we used to get even bread. To get something near to the Caribbean bread, it was these breads from the Jew shop, which had in things like what we call aniseeds, you know, and it's the closest thing to a loaf that we could get apart from the sliced white bread that you could get. And we used to look forward to those sort of things, you know, but I don't know if you miss the things from the Caribbean. They wasn't there, so you just go on without it, you know. Yeah. I mean, you know, you tried. I mean, I can remember my dad. We have a thing they call potato dumpling. And tukana.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
No, not of course, because not every Caribbean people call them.
You call it, some people call it conky
and blue draws and so on. Yeah. So one day I came home and I seen this potato dumpling. So when I taste it, it didn't taste quite the same. So I says to my father, well, what's this? Potato dumpling not taste right. He says, well, a white potato. You know? No, he was he did, you know, he's a lunatic, if you like. He used white potato to cook potato dumpling. Yeah. So with that, you know, they having more water and so on, then, you know, so it was like different. Yeah. But, you know, we can laugh at all these things, but those are the sort of things that you missed and you wish that you could have. I mean, if you're cooking soup, it's just white potato. You have to put in, there was no yam, and, you know, nowadays we have more yam and sweet potatoes than in the Caribbean. But them days you couldn't get these things. The shops didn't stock them. Oh, wow. You know. I know we used to get a lot of meat, because my dad used to send me to buy the meat, and I used to have to tell the man at the meat shop, no, I don't want so much. You know, I say, because I used to be scared that I'm carrying the wrong message. When my dad said, go and buy, you used to say 2 and 6 or 1 and 6 pence worth of meat. And when you go and they give you all this lamb, it was neck of lamb normally, loads of it. And I used to say, no, not so much. I only have this. And the man said, yeah, that's all right, because I'm showing him the money. And it was all this meat for that little bit of money. But I used to think, well, I'm carrying the wrong message, so I'm buying too much. I know it's just me and him. So, you know, I want all that meat. But that was one of the upside, if you like, because they could get plenty of meat for, you know. So Dad used to go to the cattle market and buy his meat there. And he used to cook the rice pudding, get the blood and things like that. And that was like novelty, if you like, and give to his friends and so on. But after my mom came, which is about a couple of years after me, she were able to fit in. I mean, it was a bit easier then, because she could do more the little, well, the cooking part of it was made easier, because she would, mind you, it was difficult for her as well, because she used to go to work like from 5 o'clock. She'd leave home and come back like 7 o'clock at night, you know. Them days, you know, she used to work just outside Leicester at one of them lunatic asylum. And where most people were working at the hospitals in them days, you know, where normal hospitals or crazy houses or whatever, but we used to control most of the hospitals and our factories. You know, my dad used to work with Dunlop.
All right.
It's a big company, and nobody had. Yeah, everybody could get a job. You could get 2 jobs. If you want 3 jobs, you could walk out of a job. If you didn't like it, just walk out and go next door and get another job. I tell you, it was nice in that respect. If you just want to work, if you want to trade, then it might be a little bit more difficult. But it was good in that respect that we could get work, you know. And the prejudice, there was something else, because you couldn't, you know, you're lucky if you get a white friend, you know. But you didn't have much time for friends anyway, so it didn't affect it too much. You go to work, if they didn't like you, they don't talk to you, but you didn't have to mingle with them because the time wasn't there. You were too busy getting home and doing your own thing, looking after your kids, if you had kids. And they let you know that if you get on the bus, they will sprawl out themselves so that you can't sit beside them. Most of us used to go upstairs, you know, because they don't want you to sit beside them. The Asian people, I think they had it worse. At that time, it was people from India, and they had this smell because of the scent that they use. And the white people wouldn't let them sit nowhere near them, you know. And they, you know, it was terrible. The prejudice was terrible. And you hear about the story about no dogs, no Irish. And it's not a story, it's a true thing. You know, you'll see a sign, room to let, and you would glad when you see a sign, room to let. And then when you get up close to it, it says no dogs, no Irish, no blacks. And you still ask. And they say, no, you didn't see the sign, they'll point it out to you. I mean, even buying a house, I went to buy my first house this is 69 maybe, 69. And I seen this house for sale, and I go and knock the door. And the woman says to me, oh, sorry, we can't sell to you. I says, why? She says, well, my neighbor wouldn't like it. Simple as that. And she just closed the door. You know, and that was common. Yeah, and you know, you didn't have nowhere to go to report this sort of thing. Because if you went somewhere to report it, if you went to the police station, they'll tell you the same thing, we don't want to know. Yeah. I mean, I used to have to drive around with my driving license on my dashboard because police didn't like to see me driving the kind of car I had. It was strange, you know, funny. But there's a lot of things that we accepted, but the weekends used to make up for it. Because we get with our people and we have a party and a dance around, and I tell you, we used to have fun. You know, I wish we didn't have so much fun because we would be better off now. You know, in terms of we should have used some of the opportunities to do some studying and, you know, learn how to capitalize on things, because we didn't have nobody to tell us anything about life outside of going to work and coming home. And that's what we needed. We needed some guidance. Because I went to look at a place, and it's about me, because I cannot tell you mainly about me. I went to look at a place, and I asked the lawyer, tell the lawyer I wanted to buy this from a business. And the lawyer, I left it with him, and when I go back, he said, oh no, I can't buy it. I forget the reasons why. And about 3 weeks later, the building been renovated, and when I go to find out who it belongs to, it was the same lawyer. Wow. He bought it, you know. And these other things happen, but you just have to just move on. You know, it's a lot easier now, but some of it is still happening now. Yeah, but it's more subtler.
Yeah.
You know.
Definitely. I wanted to know, was there any particular, obviously you used to socialise in each other's homes,
Yeah.
but was there any particular places where you used to actually gather or that were quite known to the community that you were in?
Yeah, church.
Church, okay. So what was the main
Yeah.
church that you...
Well, we used to... What I tell you, yeah. We used to go, if you see it, Caribbean people, on a Sunday you go to church. That's without fail.
Yeah.
Unless you're Seventh-day Adventist, then you will go to church on Saturday.
Oh, Saturday, of course. Yeah.
But when we say church and you go, and you walk in, the heads them look at you and tell you basically you don't belong here. So you have to turn, and they will direct you to a church that might take you. You know, there was it's not a black church, but that church might take, you know, you might be able to go there. So we used to do that until a few of the Caribbean people rented a hall in a schoolroom and had the church there. So on Sundays, everybody in the community used to go there. And it started like that until they used to hire, you know what they call, most churches had a separate building, like a play
Yeah, I know what you mean.
room,
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
And that's what we used to rent to have the service in. So then we had our own church, so you could go there and have your church. If it's a christening, you can have your christening in that same hall and things like that. Them days, a lot of us were having babies, if you like, and getting married. So that's the only thing we needed place for. Parties was like a main hall. There was a hall, a pub called St. George's. It was in St. George's Street, but it was St. George Pub. It was George's Pub. And we used to rent that for having dances. So quite often, you know, maybe once a month, twice a month or so, you get somebody put on a dance. One of the local guys will put on a dance at St. George's. Because it's a pub, it's like they used to make money from it. So it wasn't a problem having it. But it's only that one pub that would let you have it. And luckily enough, funny enough, it was next door to the police station. So by 11, they had to close, and you come out, you know, because you can't do nothing, you can't go overtime, because it's next door to the police station. It was right in Charles Street, just St. George's Street, which is just down here actually. And then we started having what we call the shove-ins, where in a basement you get one of the local guys who were able to buy a house, or if you rent a house from mainly the Jews or the Irish would rent your house, and you would use the basement to have a party. So once you're there, it wasn't too bad, because it wasn't like big sounds like you know, but police used to come and tell you to close, or if the neighbors, you know. And we had a guy here from Antigua, actually, Antigua Barbuda, who went in the police force, and he used to inform on the parties and where they are.
Wow.
And they used to come and basically shut you down and so on, you know. Until it got to a stage that he had to leave town.
No wonder.
He went back to Antigua. He did pretty well for himself. He went back. He raised up. He got to CID, and you know, he was pushed up quickly. because of the informing.
Yeah.
And he went back home and he went in the army. Well, he was head of the army in Antigua. And died about a couple of years ago. But he was well known here because of that. You know, we couldn't understand how police used to just find you and they just come and tell you.
Well, it was this guy.
Yeah, he was telling people because he knew the system. He knew we were having parties in our rooms and, you know, just our front room. Not big nice, you know, but just, it was different. The white people, them never seen things like that. But it's the only place we could go gather. And, you know, if we have a little christening, we go back and have a few drinks and party. I mean, it wasn't even drinks to say get drunk because you couldn't afford to get drunk. You used to take a bottle to the wine shop and they fill it up with ginger wine from the keg. And you pay like 1 or 6 and, you know, and you go back and everybody get a drink, you know. It was different. Rich Ruby. It was like, I wasn't a drinker, but, you know, the elder people used to send you to carry this bottle and get it refilled. And, you know exactly what they want. There were certain characters, the head of the homes that you go to, and they would tell you what to go and buy, you know what to go and buy. I used to be one of them that had to go and buy the stuff. And then it moved on from there. But in because I'm in the motor trade, I had a car in the earlies, and I bought a van, and I used to drive people around. The same church that you just asked about, I mean, I used to use the van. It was a minibus, basically, but it was one with bench seat. I bought it from a funeral home. And we had some bench seats. The people them didn't know that it was from the funeral home, though. You know? And I used to take them to church in Rugby and Nottingham and Northampton. Anywhere that they have a black community, they used to meet up once a month maybe and drive and have, you know, and that way, I mean, I used to enjoy that because then it used to get me to different towns and so on. And during the week, I would move people who their landlord telling them that they can't stay here any longer because they have a baby, and the kid can't cry in their house, so they have to move, find somewhere else. And it's like sometimes some people, every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, they're moving from place to place. I was very busy. There was me and another guy, Peter, who had vans in them days. And just moving people from place to place. You know, I could tell you where everybody lived because more than likely I moved them. You know, and I got known then. They used to say, "Oh, are you the boy in the van?" You know, and you know, people used to come and knock my door and say, "Are you have the van?" You know, and I want to move. I said, "When? No." You know, I says, "Where you live? I'll just get something to eat and I'll come." The time I just coming from work, you know. I tell you, it was. Now when you look back, it was funny. It was funny. No. And they mean no. I say, all right, I'll meet you at whatever street it is, and I'll move them, go and move them. And it wasn't no furnitures mainly, you know, but a lot of suitcases and clothes and the kid pram, and that was more or less the biggest things, the prams and the radiogram. Everybody had a blue spot, and that was their pride and joy, you know, and a glass cabinet. Those were the things that they had to be careful with, the gram and the glass cabinet. You know.
You never mash up any of those, right?
Well, I'm sure I have. But, you know, if they don't have people to lift them, I can't be helped.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, most of the thing that get damaged is when you're driving and you don't pack them properly. I've had a few incidents, but they didn't have no choice. You know, they couldn't go to. They didn't know anything about sewing and them type of things, you know. So yeah, it was. Yeah, them days was something. Oh boy.
I
didn't go because he can swim. So I said, well, that's wrong. So I went to see the teacher, and they says, well, since they come back from Antigua, they just jump in the pool and they can swim more than the other kids them. So with that, they banned them.
Yeah, but you can't ban someone for that. That's stupidness.
So I said, so because they're good,
do something to make them even better.
You are telling me they can't go, and that's a part of the. So when you take your